Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Clouds started to roll in our forecast as we got to the late afternoon, early evening hours, but we had a lot of sunshine for most of the day, and that's because we were still dealing with some of that drier air, and we had those offshore winds that were picking up with the Santa Ana wind, so the drier air was in the upper levels, and that gave way to the sunshine. Very limited when it came to our marine layer for today, but now we are shifting gears and talking about this incoming low pressure system that brought in the clouds, and we're going to see more of that as we go from tonight all the way through tomorrow morning. Now, when we talk about this low pressure system, it's not going to be anything of consequence for us, but it's going to bring about roughly 6 inches of snowfall across Colorado. So they're going to be dealing with winter weather advisories. But for us, it's going to be lacking a lot of that moisture because the closest approach that it has to us is going to be Nevada as well as Utah. So yeah, pretty far removed. And as a result, all we're really going to focus on is a deepening of the marine layer, some clouds rolling in as we go from tonight through tomorrow morning. And there is the potential for some patchy drizzle in the forecast. And so that would be during that time frame of tonight through tomorrow morning. And then as we get into the afternoon hours for tomorrow, we start to see the clouds really moving out and also talking about that sunshine being reinforced over the next few days. You have overnight lows that will be in the 50s for Del Mar as well as for Poway and for downtown. You also have 39 degrees. That's going to be for Ramona. 30s extending into the mountains for Mount Laguna as well as for Palomar Mountain. 48 degrees for Borrego Springs and the same for Fallbrook. Then we get into our daytime highs for tomorrow, widespread in the 60s. And this actually is the near seasonal range for this time of the year. 67 degrees for Escondido, the same for La Mesa, 66 degrees for downtown, 65 degrees expected for Ramona, 60 degrees for Julian, and 72 degrees for Borrego Springs. Then we get into the second half of our Wednesday. So by Wednesday, as the day progresses, we start to have offshore winds picking up. Area of low pressure moves out, high pressure moves over the Great Basin. That triggers those wind speeds and allows them to pick up a little bit more, especially for Wednesday night and lasting all the way through roughly about Thursday morning. That seems to be the time frame we're really talking about these stronger wind speeds. And so they're going to be mainly out of the northeast with those gusts about 40 to 50 miles per hour, a few isolated spots upwards of about 55 miles per hour. They're going to be strongest right there along and below coastal mountain slopes. So really impacting when it comes to the wind speeds, drier air that's going to be moving in, even lingering into Friday, even though by Friday morning, that's when these wind speeds will start to weaken. But we still have that residual dry air that was going to be around. So as a result, that brings humidity values down to about 15 to 20%. That elevates our fire weather concerns, but because it's not a very strong wind event, we're not anticipating anything to really trigger any alerts. So we don't have a red flag warning that's going to go into effect, nothing to reflect the wind speeds, at least as of this evening. So this looks to be a a weak to moderate Santa Ana wind event, very similar to what we started off this week with on Monday. And so that is going to raise the interest when it does come to fire weather concerns, and that's mainly going to be across the inland valleys as well as for the mountains. Also, let's talk about the coast, because starting tonight, a beach hazard statement goes into effect. That's going to be at 10 p.m. for tonight, lasting all the way till 10 a.m. on Friday morning. That's because of a west-northwest swell, bringing that elevated surf to about 4 to 6 feet. Also a high risk of rip currents right there along our coastline. So if you're not a skilled swimmer, you're not advised to be in the water during this time frame because of that high risk of rip currents and especially the elevated surf. But another thing I want to talk about is the fact that we have the return of king tides. We also have our last supermoon of the year, so that's going to create an extra pull when it comes to those morning high tides, but also on the flip side, exceptionally low tides. And so in the morning hours, we have our high tides upwards of about 7 feet for tomorrow morning, Thursday morning. Also is going to continue into Friday morning as well. And that's because we have that cold moon that's going to be taking place on Thursday. So creating that extra pool over the next couple of days, and also with that elevated surf, that leads to the potential for some minor tidal overflow into parking lots, on boardwalks. So please be careful if you are out there. Don't want you to slip or anything like that. But another thing that it could cause is some beach erosion. Everything looks to be minor because of this, but we still have to be cautious out there, especially when you're talking about the parking lots, the boardwalks. We just don't want you to get hurt or anything like that. So slippery conditions out there because of these king tides. And as mentioned, on the flip side, you have exceptionally low tides. And so if you go to our website, cbs8.com/weather, go down towards the end of that weather story, and you will actually see a list of locations, and you can click on that, and that will let you know where you can go check out the tide pools. Remember, Peek in there. You can look at the little critters. Don't touch them. Don't take them home with you. Just kind of look and enjoy with your family. So you have the full cold moon that's creating this extra pull. It's the second of 3 supermoons for this year. The name comes from, the cold moon comes from the reflection of the cold temperatures during this season and during this month. So that's why we're talking about this. That creates that extra pull. Mostly clear skies expected. So it's going to be really nice to just look towards the east once we get past that sunset. And that's going to be on Thursday. You have that moonrise starting at about 4:22. When we look at the next 7 days, you have widespread 60s in the forecast west of the mountains for tomorrow. And that's because of that low pressure system bringing in that cooler air, onshore flow picking up. Then we go to the flip of that, and that's going to be with offshore winds picking up in our forecast, the return of those Santa Ana winds, especially on Thursday. It's a relatively weak event, as mentioned, so not a big warm up with our temperatures, but it's going to get us back into the low 70s and even a little above seasonal for this time of the year. Then we go right back to the 60s. That's going to be for the coast from Friday all the way until Monday of next week. You also have the 70s for daytime highs all the way until next week. And then a return of potentially Santa Ana winds bringing 80s back, and that will be for the inland valleys by Tuesday. You're also looking at a return to the 70s for the coast by Tuesday of next week. For the next couple of afternoons, you have 50s for the mountains, 60s return starting on Friday. You have 70s for tomorrow for the desert. You're back into the 60s by Thursday. You have those 70s going strong for Friday all the way into the start of next week, and low 80s returning by Tuesday of next week.